All right, so I think we are ready to get started here. My name is Claire Fuller. I am the Public Programs Manager here at Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens. So excited that we're all here today to enjoy this virtual floral design workshop, Holiday Centerpiece. So if any of you are in the DC area, we hope that you can come out to Hillwood and check out the beautiful holiday decor that's all around the mansion and the gardens, and to see our special exhibition, Fragile Beauty, Art of the Ocean. So you can find more information about what's coming up on our website at hillwoodmuseum.org. And I will go ahead and add that link to the chat if anyone would like to check that out. So before we get started here's a couple of quick notes. Our wonderful floral and event decor designer, Ami Wilber, will be building an arrangement on camera step by step, and she will stop for questions along the way. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat as they pop into your head. The demo will take about 30 minutes, and then we'll have time for more questions at the end. We will also have the opportunity to do a show and tell. So if anyone is building an arrangement along at home, you're welcome to share with the rest of the group. So anyone who is interested is welcome to do so. So I will now pass us over to Ami Wilber, who will be starting our floral decor. So here we are.
Great, thank you, Claire, and hello, welcome everyone, and happy holidays to all of you. I think this is a fun time of year to create a centerpiece for your table. And this is something that I'm hoping will last through the holiday season, and it's also one of those centerpieces that would easily be refreshed by pulling out certain flowers, doing some alternative things to flowers, but the greens for the most part should be able to stay nice and but fresh until after the holidays. So I'll explain a little bit more about alternatives to flowers when we get there. But today I have a relatively low container. And as you can see, I have already prepped it. I have my chicken wire and I have my floral tape that is holding my chicken wire down. We only use chicken wire here. We don't use any floral foam as part of our sustainability practice. And I'm just going to now fill my container. And this is just regular old tap water. If you ever get those little packets with that come with your flowers, definitely put that in. That also helps as well. I just usually do regular tap water. So today we're going to be doing a bunch of holiday-ish inspired greens for this. I have a couple of blooms that I'm going to use. One of them are these red tea roses. And then the other thing that I'm going to be using are these berries. This is Hypericum. And those are really going to be my only sort of flowers per se in the arrangement. The rest of the material that I'm going to use, I have a seeded eucalyptus. I have some magnolia leaves. I have one of my favorite greens, which is this Carolina sapphire. And then I also have just a couple of sprigs of this noble fir, which is sort of your traditional holiday green. Okay, the one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get started today with my Carolina sapphire first. I always like to start with some greens, even though the majority of this is going to be greens, but I like to start with a green that I'm going to use as sort of my architectural points in my arrangement. So what I mean by that is I usually don't want my arrangements to be any higher or wider than 1.5 times the size of my container. But today, because we're focusing in on a centerpiece that would be something perhaps for your table, we're actually going to make this much lower. You want to think about if you are seated across the table from someone, that you want to be able to see over the arrangement and that the arrangement isn't going to impede conversation. Unless, of course, you don't want to speak to the person who's across the table, then feel free to make your arrangement higher than that if that's what you would like to do. But for now, we are going to be doing a lowish arrangement. So again, I'm going to start with my Carolina sapphire. I'm cutting everything at a nice sharp 45-degree angle. That way I get all of the stem surface as much as possible in the water. And I am going to be, because we're doing a centerpiece, I'm going to sort of start at the edges and I'm going to work my way in. But what you can see is happening is I am sort of delineating how large and how wide my arrangement's going to be with this Carolina sapphire. Again, I'm taking off all of the extraneous parts so that I have a nice clean stem that's going into the water. And I like the way this is naturally curving downward. So I'm going to use that to my advantage and I'm going to put that in. So now I have this sort of shape. It's a low kind of S shape, but a little bit of an S shape nonetheless. And then this is going to be my base for the things that are going to be out the furthest in my arrangement. For the most part, I'm going to keep everything though contained in here. So these are my sides. And again, since this is an all-sided arrangement, I'm going to then start to green from the center. And then I'm going to green out. And because these, again, are kind of wispy, this Carolina sapphire, it's nice because it's not going to really block that much. There's this one piece right here that I really like. Earlier, you can see this like nice curve to it. So I'm actually going to take this one out. I forgot about this one. I really like this piece here. And I'm going to use this as my sort of higher point in the arrangement like this. And I feel like that's a little bit more manageable. This piece is really good, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to cut it down so that I'm just going to sort of use the tips of it here. So I'm going to continue to just arrange right now with some of this Carolina sapphire. And I'm going to, again, sort of start from the center. And now I'm going to work my way out to the sides. I don't think I'm going to use this entire bunch of Carolina sapphire, but we'll see. So again, I'm just sort of greening the center. I'm leaving the edges open for right now because I have something else in mind for the edges. But for right now, I'm good with just this for my Carolina sapphire. Actually, just one more. And I'm going to put this piece in like this. So just so the other side is a little bit balanced. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about what I've done with my Carolina sapphire so far?
No questions yet?
Okay, excellent. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go in with my noble. And my noble, this piece has already been prepped. As you can see, I have none of the pine needles on the stem. I'm going to use this towards the sides like this. So I have a couple of long pieces that, again, I'm using. See, this one's not processed, so I'm going to pull off all of these little needles off of here. So I have a nice clean stem. Again, that's going to go into, I'm putting this sort of on the sides here. The one thing that I like about incorporating just a little bit of the noble fir is that, to me, this really has that lovely scent between this and the Carolina sapphire. They both have that lovely kind of pine smell to it. And again, because this is an all-sided arrangement, I'm just kind of going around and I'm doing all the sides of the container with my noble fir. And again, because this is very kind of rigid, I like to have it at the edges of the centerpiece so that it's not, so that we don't see the backs of it and it's just sort of facing downward. I am going to put, I do have a couple of smaller pieces that are a little bit thinner that I will then layer up in here, but I don't really like to see the underneath of the noble pine as much. So again, I'm trying to kind of keep it so that it won't be, you know, like facing backwards up into the arrangement. So again, just kind of putting this down at a little bit of an angle so you're not really seeing that. All right. I'm going to continue. The next thing I'm going to do is go in with my magnolia leaves. My magnolia leaves, I love the brown and the green side of it. So I don't mind if both the green or the brown side show. I do want to kind of contain it so it's not these like massive pieces of magnolia coming off. So as you can see, I've like stripped down almost all of the leaves except for 4. I'm going to start to put my magnolia leaves in where I see some bald spots starting to form. So like right here, I think is a great place to put some magnolia leaves. And again, I'm going to put some of these in again down at the side like I did with my noble fir. But then I'm also going to put some, I'm just going to strip down some of these leaves. And you can always save the leaves that you take off. You can, you know, place them and make yourself a little a wreath with them. You could, you know, maybe stick them in places here and there, but for the most part, I'm just going to put my leaves off to the side here. But again, I'm going to use this sort of in the same way that I'm using my noble fir for right now. So again, these are kind of out to the sides. I like to do things so they're sort of balancing each other from one side to the other side. But then I do want to take some of my magnolia leaves and I do want them to kind of stick up and out from the arrangement. So what I mean by that is now I'm going to push, not push, but place this one here. So it's kind of sticking up a little tall. Nippy that down a little bit. So now I do have some that are going to be in the middle of the arrangement as well. I'm going to do one more piece. Again, this is like a massive piece. So I am pulling off almost all of the leaves and I'm holding on to them and I'll save that for a rainy day project. But for now, I have these leaves that are kind of in the center like this. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my seeded eucalyptus. Now my seeded eucalyptus, I'm a little bit more interested in the seed pods than I am the leaves. So I'm actually going to take off some of these leaves and I'm going to use the seeded eucalyptus almost like berry branches. I'm going to start to put these in and fill these in to some spots that are a little bit naked. But as you can see, I'm still kind of leaving these big areas that don't have any sort of adornment to them yet. And the reason for that is because the next thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to hold off and I'm going to wait on my seeded eucalyptus for a little bit as well. But the next thing that I'm going to do is I want to use some pomegranates. So I have fresh pomegranates. I have these little gardener sticks. Excuse me. I'm going to take the stick and I'm going to gently put it into the pomegranate. Okay, there it is. There we go. Okay, so now I have my pomegranate on a stick. If you are using a pomegranate and you're using a stick, just make sure that you're not doing it over a white tablecloth or anything like that, because the little pomegranate juices are running down the side. So I like to use the pomegranate with this little, I don't know what this is, like little stem part out, because I think this is kind of festive. So I'm going to take my pomegranate and oops, as you can see, stick is not very sturdy, but I'm going to take this and I'm going to place it in to this area right here. I'm going to just sort of move my camera down a little bit so you can kind of see, like, this area right here is a little bit empty. So I can place my pomegranate into my arrangement. I want it to kind of nestle on the side of the container so that it's in there nice and secure. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side as well. So again, I am stabbing my pomegranate. I'm doing this off camera because this is a little tricky. And using the surface of my bench to press down the stick part there. All right, so I'm going to do this on the other side as well. Just do this. And again, I want my pomegranate to sit so it's nestled on the side of my container. So now I have my 2 pomegranates. So the underneath part of the pomegranate is now where I'm going to start putting some of my eucalyptus. So I have some of these little drapey scenarios. I'm going to lift up my pomegranate and I want to just put that down so you can see below it. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. Excuse me. There. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I really want these pomegranates to kind of be like a focal point. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my roses. And so these roses, you want to put them into places where it's going to be easy to remove them and replace them, because these will obviously probably go first. And you want to be able to take these out so that when you're having your holiday dinner, you can add in either fresh new roses to it, or you could always add in more greens. And these are kind of long, so I'm actually breaking these down a little bit. And again, now I'm just sort of putting these around at an angle. I'm never putting anything in straight up and down. I'm kind of like tucking them in. I don't like the way this one looks over here. I'm going to fix this real quick. Sort of tuck those in a little bit. And we want to give the sides a little bit of attention and love, since sometimes I neglect the sides of my arrangements. So I'm going to put one stem of my roses into the side here so that there's at least something going on in the sides. See, like right here. No one wants to just see that. People want to see some flowers. And I'll actually tuck this sort of on top of the magnet. Okay. Are there any questions so far? What's happening? What's been going on?
No questions.
Okay. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my hypericum. I like these green leaves, so I'm going to leave those on, but I'm going to pull out these other ones. And these, I'm going to go in. I think that they're almost the exact color of the pomegranate, which I like. So I'm going to put them in and nestle them close to where the pomegranate is. So it almost looks like it's part of the pomegranate. So I have some here. And I'm just going to do a couple of these. I'm not going to go crazy with the hypericum. I cut off this top here because it was too long. I am actually going to pull off these leaves because I don't want them. I'm going to tuck that little part in to where I had those roses on the side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to tuck that into the side where I had the roses. I don't know. I don't like the, I take it back. I don't like the leaves. I'm going to take the leaves off. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to put it again up towards where the pomegranate is. Because I do like how it's sort of complementary, the same color there. So then the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with more of my eucalyptus. Because I really love how the eucalyptus is. And again, this will dry almost the same way as it is when it's fresh. So I'm going to place it in areas where I have things that are going to be more perishable. And what I mean by that is the roses, for example, or the hypericum. And so I'm going to place my eucalyptus, my seeded eucalyptus in these areas so that if I do have to pull out any of my roses, my stems of roses, or my hypericum, that I don't necessarily have to replace them with other flowers. I might just be able to have my eucalyptus seed pods there instead, so that when I pull it out, it'll still look lovely and it will still not look, and it won't look like something's, missing from the arrangement. The other thing that I would do is I would hold on to some of my my winter greens, and you can keep them outside. If you don't have access to outside, you can keep them in your refrigerator. And then again, you could always then go in closer to your holiday dinner or whatever it is that you want your arrangement for. And then you could always go in and refresh with some of those as well. But as you can see, I'm really starting to fill this up with a little bit more of the eucalyptus. I'm going to go in. All right, so I have all of these leaves that I've pulled off. What you can do, and of course magnolia leaves dry, so they will kind of look like this as well, is you can then start to, tuck them in. And these don't necessarily have to be touching the water because they will dry and they will just sort of dry that way. So you can always, do that. I like to kind of add them in here and there. I might add in another one on the here side over here. But I'm not trying to make an Elizabethan collar out of the bottom of it with all of these with these leaves. So then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with just a little bit more of the tips of my Carolina Sapphire. Again, I'm going to look for spots that I think are a little bit empty. Start to go in. One thing to mention is whenever you're putting any kind of greens, like evergreens, into an arrangement with water, they're going to suck up a lot of water within like the first day. So you really want to make sure, especially since you have other flowers in here, that you go in and you water it every day. Obviously the best thing to do is to like change out your water if you can. And I'll show you that in just a second of how I like to do that. But I think the last thing I'm going to do is put in one more little thing of Carolina Sapphire. Here it is. It was this little empty spot right here. I'm going to just tuck that in there. And then the other thing that I think works out nicely is if you do that, you know, you can use oranges or apples, or you could use holiday ornaments in these areas if you'd like as well. But let me first show you real quick what it looks like. What side do I like better? I think this side. So then this is, oops, the holiday arrangement. Here's the other side, the holiday arrangement. And then I'm going to try something tricky. Hope I don't make you seasick, but I'm going to, so you can see from like the top of the arrangement that, you know, it's all sort of like filled in as well. But the way I would change the water out in my arrangement is I would pick it up, bring it over to the sink, hold it so that, you know, you're not monkeying up any of your stuff, and then going in and refilling it with fresh water. So I know that was kind of quick, but there wasn't like that much, since it was all like mostly greens that we were using for this. But does anyone have any questions for me at this point?
So there are no questions in the chat, but if anyone would like to unmute themselves or add questions to the chat, you are welcome to. Is there anyone who was following along and would like to share their arrangement?
I have a question about the water. Sometimes I use a little bit of sugar and a little bit of household bleach in fresh floral arrangements to supposedly extend their life. Do you find any value in that?
So that's essentially all that, you know, like those little packages that you get, that's essentially what it is. It's just like a little bit of sugar and something to keep the water clean. Honestly, I think it's 50-50. I've done it with just like plain water, and I've done it with using a little bit of that stuff, and I don't find that much of a difference. But I always think if you have it, why not? Definitely use it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have one more question that just popped into the chat. Where can you buy the greens for the arrangements?
Okay, this depends where you're located. If you are in the DC area, my first thing would be you know, go to any of the farmers markets. At this point, most of the flower farmers in the area are all carrying all of these winter greens, like the magnolia, the seeded eucalyptus, the different kinds of evergreens. But if you can't, you know, get yourself to a farmer's market and get that, you can always go to Potomac Floral Wholesale in the DC area. If you're not in the DC area, I've seen actually all of these different greens at Trader Joe's before. You can also go to a local flower shop or a place where they're selling, you know, wreaths and different things like that. You know, sometimes at, you know, garden centers. So a lot of times they'll have these winter greens as well.
Lovely, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions, or would anyone like to share their arrangements?
I'm trying to. That's I have to. What is it that I do? You know, on the new Zoom broadcast. Oops, no. How do you get it to reverse? There
you go.
Okay.
Oh, that looks gorgeous.
Yeah. I don't have the other greens, but I had most everything else.
No, that looks wonderful. Yeah, definitely. Fantastic. And again, that will last for a while, and you can always just refresh any of the more perishable items in there with either
Right.
more greens, or you can do, different kinds of fruit. You could do, like I said, holiday ornaments. Oh, what else did I have? Oh, I forgot. You could do pine cones. Pine cones are always kind of fun. The way I do a pine cone is I just wrap some wire around the bottom. And so then I have the wire here. Again, you'll need one of those little gardening picks, or you could take the stem of your, rose or whatever stem. You can always attach your pine cone or whatever to that as well. I've forgotten that rose stems are really good because they're a nice hard stem, and you can use that to attach anything as well.
Well, lovely. Thank you all. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking these questions. Folks, you are welcome to reach out if you have any additional questions. Again, you can see what's coming up, particularly in 2025 on our website at hillwoodmuseum.org. But thank you all again for joining us today, following along with this arrangement. Thank you so much, Amy, for another gorgeous arrangement. So I hope you all have a lovely weekend and a wonderful holiday season. So thank you all for joining.
Yes, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.